What is up, y'all? It is another beautiful Thursday. So, we are going to be talking about some swim thoughts and, in particular, coaching and development of athletes, particularly young athletes. So, we'll just call your 8 and unders, maybe your 9 unders, definitely your 8 and unders, right? I break this into two groups: your beginners, which are like your 7 to 6 year olds, and then your 8 and unders, which is like once they can get across the pool safely. Let's just say this is where the 9 year old comment comes in. 7 to like 8.5, right? 9, 10, you kind of want them to start. I'm not going to say like training, like doing heavy yards, but getting more endurance, right? So, you know how it goes down. We got the notes ready. So this was, something I'd planned to talk about over the weekend and then on Monday where I do, wire to wire work. And Coach Mike dropped two posts. One was 2 days ago. The other one was yesterday. And I was like, okay, let me flesh this out a little bit more because I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about and or what I could edutainment you about, right? So, um, he dropped some comments. And I was like, okay, like I can work with this. Like this is kind of, allowed me to pigeonhole my thoughts and then decide where I want to take it. So we're gonna start off watching some of, oh Jesus, watching some of Coach Mike's videos. Um, Two posts he made. He went hard on them. They were really excellent. So shout out to Coach Mike, head coach over at Calm, that city of Midland. Over there in the sandbox in Texas. Oil rigs going up and down all over the place, pumping that black gold. And then, Coach Mike does the Momentum Coach. Is it coaching? Momentum Coaching podcast on Spotify and Apple. So go check that out. I'm sure he has a YouTube channel too. So I'll try and find that and post it below if y'all want to go give him. Not if y'all want to go give him a follow. Show love. If they're out here doing the right thing. Why not? And yeah, guys, let's jump into it. We're gonna use these posts as springboards and then dive into what we want to talk about today. So once again, we're talking about 8 and under swimming. Let's get it.
Champion 8-year-old. Please, for the love, do not call any 14 and up. Don't do it. You don't need to do it. It's a great way to set them up for failure long term. So, yeah, just don't do it. So, but if you're a coach that coach,
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what's going on because my screen. Oh, because it's a window capture. Okay, my bad, guys. I know what's going on. Yeah, we're gonna let this run through and then we'll run it back.
the 8-year-olds, good luck. That's all I gotta say. Talking about your local champion 8-year-old. Please, for the love, do not call any 14 and under elite. Like, unless they're 12 years old and making Olympic trials, but even then, don't do it. You don't need to do it. It's a great way to set them up for failure long term. So, yeah, just don't do it. So, but if you're a coach that coaches elite 8-year-olds, good luck. That's all I gotta say. Talking about your local.
Okay, so let's see. Our first point: elite 8 year olds. We're going to give that a strike through, so we know we've covered. So I am. Let's go through this piece by piece. I think that's the best way to do this.
Champion 8-year-old. Please, for the love, do not call any
I have no idea where this starts.
champion 8-year-old.
Okay.
Please, for the love, do not call any 14 and under elite. Like,
All right, that one right there. That's wildly incorrect, especially on the girl side. Um, we're gonna run through this a piece, all right, in pieces. So I'm gonna say some things that might be contradicted by the next thing he says, and then we'll change our framing of what we believe in, right, as he goes through this. But piece by piece, I think you can't take these things as absolutes and then like, and coaches do this. Swim coaches are really bad about this, where we'll take one thing as an absolute and then you learn something new and it either violates or affirms this new thing. So you either keep, or the old thing, so you either keep or ditch the new thing instead of figuring out how they work together, right? Like, for instance, with girls, right? 13, 14-year-olds. Girls, obviously, they mature earlier. Excuse me. Haven't even eaten anything. I don't know why I'm getting a little gassy, but 13, 14 girls, right? Their peak testosterone is when they're in puberty, right? So it's somewhere in that 10 to 14 range, right? So that's going to be when they can put on the most muscle. It's going to be when they can be trained the hardest. It's when they're going to grow the tallest that they'll ever be. So saying that you can't call them, right? Because that's the thing. People are going to interpret it as, oh, you can't call them elite. And it's like, no, like, especially on the girl side, you can definitely call them elite. And if you can't, you probably messed up as a coach. Right now, obviously, not all of us have the big enough talent pools or develop our athletes enough to put a kid in the situation to be called elite. But I don't know. I'm sure like I said, we're looking at 30-second clips here, and so maybe he goes more into depth on his podcast. Make sure you go check it out, the coaching momentum coaching podcast. But I think that that's just a wildly incorrect statement to make about, especially girls by the time they're 14. The game with coaching girls is basically allow them to maintain their strength as their 10 and under strength, right? Or get stronger into the age 14 when their estrogen starts to take over and it's harder for them to put on muscle mass, right? Obviously, the ones who will go on to college are going to have higher testosterone levels, but they are still girls who have higher estrogen levels, which is antithetical to building muscle. So no matter how much more testosterone they have, their body is designed not to build muscle. Some less than others, but it's still designed not to build muscle. So I think as a coach, like, your window of getting a girl really good is very, very, very limited, right? And the reason why I say the thing also on maintaining strength, I remember we had this Asian girl, what was her name? Anyway, she was like 9 years old, 113 kicker, right? And this is where like this elite talk comes in. Like, that's an elite time. Okay, for anybody, it's a high school kicker. 113 at 9. So you're going to tell me that just because we don't want to use the word elite, we're not going to recognize greatness and call it what it is, right? So that's kind of like what I'm saying. I wish I could remember the boy's name, because if I remember the brother's name, I remember her name. I wonder how she's doing. But anyway, sweet little girl, very kind, great teammate. But she could crank out pull-ups like, and it's like, oh, we have something here. Like, and another thing, maybe an elite talent, right? Because she's got great natural strength, right? Whether it's from Henry was the brother's name, Katie was her name. But yeah, she had great upper body strength, great kick strength, and maybe kickability is a better word to put it. And it's like, yo, if we can just maintain this post 14 years old, like, she's going to be, maybe not elite, but she's going to have a chance to be a very, 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 very good swimmer, because her foundation is, her floor of tools to start building her out as an elite swimmer, they're there, right? Like, she has elite tools, right? And that's another thing, right? Like, I think he's right. Like, and this is a piece of it, right? Mumbling over myself. No, I'm getting ahead of myself, so don't say that. But yeah, it's just like, by the age of 14, like, no, for girls, you can definitely have an elite 14-year-old. Boys is a lot different because they're always getting stronger. And you can look up the time standards and see this, right? You know what? Let's look them up real quick. Excuse me for a second, guys. You know what? I should have this stuff on my page for people to go and download. Is this meters? Short course yards. Let's go to long course meters so that way we can have something everybody can refer to. Why is it not showing me meters? Oh, I know what it's doing. Okay, here we go. I gotta switch it over real quick. Screen capture. Okay, it froze. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. So as we look at this, right, we're gonna come over here and look at 50 free. Where's the girls? Short course meters, LCM. Okay, right here, 10 girls. No, let's do 10 girls. So we have the 50 free, 32-1. No, we have to go to 12 because that's when they start hitting puberty. So we have 29-19. Long course 50 meter free is a quad A time in the U.S. And basically, if you stay getting quad A times, you're going to end up qualifying for junior nationals, right? So summer juniors especially. So we have a 29-19. So as we move on to 13-14 girls, 2019 is still a triple A time. 2019 is still a double A time for 15-16. And then it's still a double A time for 17-18. Right now, if you go under that, you get into 28s, you have a triple A time forever, right? 13-14 girls, 29, right? 28, maybe you drop out. 28, maybe you drop out, right? So I think the 100 free is even easier, right? Minute, you're still good. Minute, you're still good. You see what I mean? So you're on a tight schedule coaching girls, for sure. Let's see if I can move this back. And if it'll mess up on me, cool. Okay. I feel like this probably just messed up again. All right, let's move on to the next thing he's going to talk about.
As they're 12 years old at Olympic trials, but even then, don't do it. You don't need to do it. It's a great way to set them up for failure long term. So,
all right, here's my second. Oh, it is. See, now it's recording my sound from there. I'm not going to switch over because it messed up last time. But this is the second issue, right? So he's talking now. We're talking about psychological fallout of calling somebody that young that. Now, I think. Once again, I think with that young of an age, not necessarily time-wise, because they're probably not going the times, right? Except some girls will, like Kayla Decky, like the two girls in China. The 13-year-olds who are, finally at world championships and at the Olympics. But when you put that type of title, calling, a 12-year-old elite, or even if they're making trials, right, calling them elite, which they are, you'd be accurate. But I think what he's saying is don't say it to the kid. Don't put the pressure on the kid. Now, some kids are built for that pressure, right? And really, if they are built for the pressure, you put the pressure on them in different ways, not by calling them elite. And it is tricky, too, because elite can be a confidence booster as much as it can be crushing expectation, right? Like, oh, if I don't swim this fast, I'm gonna get in trouble. So you have to navigate it carefully. The way I navigate it is by saying you're capable of these things, right? Like, and I remember I had this girl specifically, great underwater dolphin kicker, but would never use it in her anything over a 50. She almost finished top 10 in her 50 fly backstroke. She'd always use it, but then in her 100 back, she never would, right? She's worried about running out of air. And first time she did, she dropped 3 seconds, right? 57.9 or 57.2, whatever. So it's I'm trying to tell you, Right? And I remember I talked to her. She was like all smiles about it, and I was like, and you were kind of scared when you did it, right? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, imagine when you're confident when you do it. What do you think you're gonna go? And she's like, 55. But that right there is also her maybe thinking about what I think the expectation is, right? Instead of her talking about what she thinks she can do. So with girls, it's once again it's something you have to navigate. You have to navigate their feelings, not their emotions, but their feelings. Which is like I use feelings and instincts kind of interchangeably, but this time we're definitely talking about feelings, right? Like how they feel about themselves with tactfulness. But yeah, all in all, I would say I'd give them this one. So it's one Coach Mike, one Coach Dax. But no, I'm just joking. But yeah, if the kid is actually elite, you got better and more motivational things you need to be saying, and it does create. You got to know your personnel. I'd say is what this one comes down to, right? Like, because a lot of people want that recognition. Like, I worked my ass off to be called elite. You're gonna tell me I'm not. Like, I'm an athlete. It's when some FUs come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just don't do it. So, but if you're a coach that coaches elite 8-year,
I wish he had said why he believes it. Right? Because all right, this is a big issue I have in swimming. Is you have these ideas, but nobody ever supports them with anything. And if you go at them in a competitive nature, you're a bad guy. Right? I get this a lot, obviously, because I'm way more vicious. So I definitely come off as the bad guy. But like, why do you believe these things? Right? And it seems like a common sense thing, and obviously I understand it, but common sense ain't common. Like, parents don't understand why. Right? You need to be explaining this. And personally, with Rakely, and we're going to look at some stuff I'm going to show y'all from my own documents. One of the advantages we press is parent education. And the reason why is because we want one, I want to always get better. So by me telling you what a good coach looks like when I'm falling off the rails or whatever, you can call me out on it, right? And I can try and fix it. Like I remember I just sent out a questionnaire for feedback, and it was kind of too positive. And it was like in that moment I realized like, oh man, I need somebody to be on my ass a little bit. I need somebody to insult me or call me out on something. So I had to like add 2 more questions to the questionnaire so I could get some negative feedback because I want to get better. So, and like if I'm doing these things right, like yeah, it helps me communicate my products better, but it doesn't help me make the product better. You see what I mean? So yeah, I just wish that people would explain why. Like, and this is me being vicious, right? Or malicious a little bit. I think they do it because they don't want their ideas attacked or questioned. It's just, I'm the coach, hear me roar. But no, like, support your idea. Like, you might actually have a really, and that's kind of what we're doing this conversation, right? You might actually have a really bad idea or a really bad take, but because you didn't explain yourself, we can't even broach or address why it's a bad take or why it's a good take and why I should change my mind, right? Like you're kind of just giving me statements where I can just be like, I disagree. And then I'll explain why, right? And you may then come back, but you got important things to do, right? So you're just like, no, or whatever, you're wrong, Dax, and nobody gets better, right? So I really wish coaches would do a much better job of explaining, but really the proper term is opening themselves to criticism by making a stance and why they believe things and allowing somebody to be like, no, that's wrong. That's incorrect. Like, we do it like this. And the only thing that comes out of that when you do stuff like that is you're either going to fortify your position on what you think, or you're going to find a better way to do things. And it's kind of funny. I had a coach who's in my stuff. He said, like, a lot of coaches aren't really trying to improve like that, you know, but that's my take. So anyway, let's finish up this one.
good luck. That's all I gotta say. Talking about
And see, he's just dismissive, right? Like, I get it. Why? Like, if your goal is to coach elite 8-year-olds, like, I would say you're not going to make it. And the reason why is because, okay, hold on, let me take that back. One, because an elite 8-year-old is not a thing, right? Unless, all right, let's put this in basketball terms. I think this is why I believe what I believe, and it makes a lot more sense, right? So when I was 12, we would go play basketball with like adults, right? So, and when you get in there, it's not like, and I believe this about life too. So parents, make sure your kid is watching their mouth on the internet. Respect your elders, just the basic old OG stuff that we learned. Like when you decide to get into an adult space, you deserve to be treated like an adult, which means like nobody's gonna treat you like a kid. We're not pulling our punches. So when I'm out there playing with these, excuse me, kids who are in college, and adults, like full grown men with mortgages and families, like one, they don't want to pass us the ball, right? Because we're 12-year-olds, right? We're middle schoolers, probably the same age as one of their kids. They don't trust us. So you basically gotta like get it out the mud, like set screens, rebound, pass, get people open. Like basically, like you have to completely subjugate yourself to and appeal to their authority. So obviously, I end up becoming like a natural pick because I eat glass. I'm out there getting rebounds, and yeah, I could go back up with it, but I'm gonna kick it out so they can get another shot. And they're like, oh, I like playing with this guy. Like he gets me extra shots, right? He always passes me the ball, so I know at least that guy's gonna pick me up every time it's his turn to run. That's another thing. They don't even let you sign up to run. You got to get picked up. But I think about a 12-year-old. Like when you box out, like that's a physical thing to do, and I'm getting a rebound over you. I was also 6'2" when I was 12, so that helped. But stick and bones. But it's like you're treated. I gotta remember why I went on this tangent. Sorry, guys. If you're new to the page, this happens sometimes. The storytelling gets a little off base and out of control, and then I forget the point. But good luck. You would call that like, okay, let's just say, but now I'm out there busting their ass, like on offense and defense. Like I'm shooting a J, I'm crossing them over, post game immaculate. And I'm 12, right? He's obviously said elite 8-year-olds, but I'm 12. You would say like, oh man, this kid is actually like really good. Like, and if he keeps growing, like he's an elite talent, right? Or you could say he's elite, right? And if it's a hooper, you know that or not, right? And the coaches know that, and obviously the people around you are going to recognize it. So like, I just think like there has to be more of an understanding about these things, like and the dismissiveness of it all. Are you correcting these mistakes? Like when somebody calls somebody elite, I think I've seen the exact clip he's reacting to. Actually, I don't think this is an organic thing that happens on his pool deck because they usually have a great culture at Colin from what I've seen doing clinics out there. And meeting Coach Mike and the last head coach when Coach Mike was the assistant coach, to where it's probably not something he deals with like that, to where it's like a personal experience he's gone through and is commentating on. There's an actual clip running around right now on IG. It's an old one. It's been on for a few months, probably almost a year, and where the guy's talking about elite 8-year-olds and like you're dumb if you believe that. But then I think we need to say why. And it's like, okay, I'm going to give you all some insider trading also. We're spending way too long on this topic. Sorry. What Innovation comes from going against the grain, right? So one thing I do, and this is something you learn in, or you should, if you're trying to be elite, you'll learn in life, and it's problem solving, but it's specifically how to problem solve, right? So how many of you have been around coaches? You should have noticed this, and if you aren't, you're probably egotistical and not growing as fast as you should. But you've been around kids, and they say something that's like extremely wise, but it's like very simpleton like. And that's kind of the first layer. And the second layer is I remember whenever I'd be looking for stuff or trying to find answers or I lose something, like my parents always be like, it's right in front of you. Like, just look down. Like, and it's right there. Right. So I think the two things I learned is one, obviously innovation comes from disruption, which means you have to do something that people are either saying not to do or is incorrect. Right. The second thing is it's right in front of it's right underneath your nose. And the third thing is it's going to be childish. Okay, so they're doing the wrong thing, right? If going forward is the right thing, you need to turn around, right? It's probably right under your nose. So whatever the simplest step is, like that's what you need to be exploring, and you need to do it in a childish, naive way. That's probably like if you actually put some thought into what the kids say, you'd be like, oh, this kid is like that was not a wise thing to say. But just as a literal statement, it is. So you need the literalness, and you need to dive into the literalness and see if it just proves or if it's a better way to go. And in all honesty, like I use that method every day with problem solving, and it's usually right. So I say that to say like with you can't be dismissive. Maybe they're right. And obviously, I don't believe that. You know, if you're trying to create elite 8-year-olds, it's kind of stupid in the context that he is putting it in. But if they're right, if elite 8-year-old is right, oh man, the sun's okay. I hate this. If elite 8-year-old is right, how is it right? Why is it right? What makes it right? And we're going to explore this as we go through this because I actually have a document of regularly, how to develop your team we're going to look at. But usually it's their skill level, their mentality, their how they handle losing. And to me, a good loser is a good loser. Like, we don't want that. Or let's say this: I'd rather have a bad loser than a good loser. I definitely believe that. But anyway, it's like what features would make an 8-year-old elite, if it was possible to call them elite. So you can't be dismissive about these things, guys. So Coach Mike, if you're listening, like that's also why I say I don't think this is something he's dealing with on a personal level. Like his team is not built to let that type of behavior foster, or that's not the right word. I think foster actually might be the right word. And grow, fester and grow. So I don't see how he would have experience dealing with that personally, but swim parents are always swim parents. So I might be wrong. All right, let's get to his next point. Like I said, Coach Mike was killing it the last few days.
Poorly to low expectations. The number of times I've come into a group that had a coach that had low expectations for their team, and I came in and reset the bar, and we got so much more out of them over these, in quotations, lower level athletes. Like, I can't name the number of times that's happened. The expectations matter. Now, I think the difference you'll see with elite level athletes between your lower level, elite athletes.
Hold up. You just talking about elite level athletes and your lower levels not being something. So what I'm talking about. This is why people need to explain their positions much better. Because now you look like a hypocrite.
Are low, and it really bothers them. Like, really good athletes do not want low expectations, and they don't want a coach that has low expectations. So I'll say the biggest difference is elite athletes have higher expectations for their coaches. So if you really want to be a good coach that coaches really good swimmers, you need to have great expectations for your athletes. They respond well to high expectations and poorly to low expectations. The number of times I've come into a group.
Okay, so let's dive into this. So I am completely, not completely, mostly in agreement. Boundaries, expectations, there it is. So I have two things. So maybe Coach Mike can comment below and let me know. Because he said the number of times he's come into a group. So are you talking about on calm? Which didn't make me, it's like, are things that bad where it's like you got to be jumping around to different groups to find this out? Or are you talking about like on other teams, like as you've gone through the rank, you know, the climb to becoming the head coach of, you know, one of the biggest teams in Texas? Maybe that's just the branding, which is even better, right? You know, it's say walk lightly but carry a big stick. So shout out to y'all. But yeah, dude, I think, I don't know if expectations is the right words. I wrote down boundaries, standards, and expectations. I'd say maybe habits is a better word than expectations. Yeah, because boundaries, habits, and standards is the right. Those three words are the right words. Expectations is not the right word for this. And the reason why I say that is, man, I got myself in frame, but I keep disappearing when I go to think. But then I chop my head off. So I got to figure that out. So the reason why I say that expectations is the wrong word is, and this is kind of difficult, not difficult, but it's going to sound kind of backwards because leaders set expectations. But just follow with me, right? So one, you're the leader. Right now, obviously, athlete-led teams are the best situations to have, right? Where it's self-policed. But you're the leader. Now, you can have expectations, but the issue with expectations is people don't have to follow them. That's the issue with expectations, right? Like, if we look up the dictionary definition of expectations, let's go Urban Dictionary first. Expectations. A guaranteed way. See what I'm talking about? A guaranteed way for you to make sure that people will continuously disappoint you. That's what I'm talking about. Boom. Or people don't have to follow expectations. And the issue with swimming is it's a business still. So now you have to ask yourself, like, okay, like, do we want the check or not? Right now, if you have more confidence in your team and your entity and yourself, you have an abundance mindset that, hey, like, doing the right thing. Oh gosh, let's just not even go down that path. Let's see what the actual definition is now, or the normal definition. Shout out to Urban Dictionary. That was perfect. It says meaning. Why don't they have definition? Like the predictive text doesn't predict a definition. Eager anticipation, the state of being expected. So expect is the word I'm looking for. Ooh. Yeah. Expectation is a terrible word choice. The active state of looking forward. Pay attention. Like, we're going to talk about this because I am very particular about the use of language, words. Right now, obviously, I have my times where, you know, I just go straight Ebonics and all that goes out the window, right? If those of you who don't know what Ebonics, it's like black slang, right? That's what they had to call it because, you know, they always got to call it something. Urban culture instead of street culture or ghetto. Oh, jeez. All right. Anyway, almost set me off. Okay, so pay attention to these words. The act or state of anticipating or looking forward to something happening. Looking forward to something happening. So there is no action here. None. No action. It can also refer to a belief about what is likely to occur. Once again, no action. often based on personal experiences and or cultural norms. Kind of no action, but this is actually what you should be establishing, right? Cultural norms, right? That's the actual thing. So it's partially, or the answer is actually in that right there, the definition, and that was from a AI generated definition. Okay, expect to look forward to the probable occurrence and appearance of. So yeah, if you're like you said, he's gone into teams with low expectations. Their probable occurrence is more low expectations, or rising to lower expectations. So that first definition is completely off. To consider likely or certain definitely doesn't qualify. To consider reasonable or due, we're unreasonable. So yeah, expectations is a terrible word choice. So for you coaches out there, standards. Let's look up the word standard now. Dang, 35 minutes in. We may not get through everything. So shout out to Coach Mike. He gave us a lot with those two 30-second clips. Standard. Let's see what standards comes up with first. Serving as or conforming to an established or accepted measurement or value. That's what we want to do. Widely recognized or employed as a model of authority or excellence. Acceptable but of less than top quality. I hate that last definition, but that's still pretty good. And then we have AI. We have standards are established rules. So established, you're doing something. Rules or criteria used as a basis for comparison or judgment. You are bad, you are good. Love it. Often set by authority or general consent. Now, think about this definition. Let's see if I can go back without losing it. Standards are established rules. To expect means to think or believe that something will happen. You see what I'm saying? And the issue with with word choice is, guys, we are always communicating to the subconscious mind. Always. Right? So like when I talk, sometimes if I say I believe, I will stop myself and say I know. Because I need their subconscious mind to have confidence. Right? So when we're talking about subconscious mind, and I talked about this in the Caleb Dressel video too, we're talking about feelings, right? We're talking about the lizard brain, the caveman brain. How does what come out your mouth make somebody feel, right? Expectations kind of says like, I'm not doing anything, you need to do this, and I hope it happens. Standards is like, I'm going to go to work and come up with something that's you need to abide by. So I did my part, and then we'll discuss how we abide by it or whatever. But yeah, man, actually, I'm surprised the word standards came up without mentioning the word standard in its own definition. Okay, pretty much it's the exact same definition. There may be an AI definition though, a different AI definition. Okay. So that's standards. We have boundaries. I don't know why I'm doing like this. Why am I being so uninteractive? My bad, guys. Oh, of course it's... Oh, okay, I'm on the wrong screen. Boundaries. Something that indicates a border or a limit. You see what I'm saying? The border or limit so indicated, that which serves to indicate bounds or limits of anything. A boundary is something that indicates or fixes a limit or extent, often serving as a dividing line between different area and concepts. It can also refer blah, 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 blah. Oh, here we go. Emotional and psychological limits that define acceptable behavior in relationships. That definition is way better than expectations. And like I said, this matters because like even if you don't know the word boundary makes you feel something different than expectations in a major way. Like I'm getting pumped and just, seeing how much better of word choice this is. And then of course, we got to hit Urban Dictionary. We'll go back and do standards too. Urban Dictionary. one's going like it's going like private life relationship stuff. So this one isn't gonna really help us. Yeah. I'll bar you hold on while using the restroom. I did not know that was called a boundary. I feel like that might be a joke though. Let's see what Urban Dictionary gives us on standards. You know, the Urban Dictionary app is no longer it's no longer downloadable. Sad day. This happened like 3 or 4 years ago. A word to describe something that goes without saying. Not bad. A term used to describe something that is so ordinary and expected to be like that, no one should expect otherwise. Assumed, part of the natural way of things, the way things have always been. I don't really like that one too much, but kids don't know what they don't know. I think that's an important part. We're going to talk about that too. All right, and our last word is, what did I say? Because I didn't write it down. Boundaries, standards, and I totally forgot. I should have wrote it down. Sorry, guys. Throw it in the comments if you remember, just so I can know how stupid I'm being right now. Okay? But yeah, guys, it's just like that's prime example right there. Right? Words matter.
That had a coach that had low.
Okay, right. So the second part is what he's saying, and this goes into the elite thing, right? Your standards, especially for the young swimmers, that's why I wanted to talk about the young swimmers, like, you know, and then ran into his videos, is they don't know what they don't know. You come into this world knowing nothing. So it's kind of funny. I was talking to my mom and I was like, I'm not me because I just came out of the womb this way. Like, y'all made me this and now y'all don't want to deal with it because I'm calling y'all out on the same things that you taught me. If anything, it should be a badge of honor, right? That I'm clearly living within the boundaries that you guys set for me. They're the important word. And I'm enforcing them and upholding them to the people who taught me them, right? Which somebody does that. Like, you shouldn't enforce your own boundaries on people, but you should definitely enforce people's own boundaries on themselves. And don't let people obviously enforce their boundaries on you either. But they don't know what they don't know, right? So when I took over a group, they were definitely underachieving. This group of, you know, both the 8&Unders and the at my first stop, and then my second stop was 9, 10-year-olds, and then obviously there were some peppered in 11-year-olds. But it's like, okay, like, we're not doing this anymore. Like, I set everybody down, and I was like, these are our standards. Like, I remember, and you know, the parents have the email, so, you know, you can fact check me on this. Like, I'm never gonna get you in trouble or get on you or have a punishment or reprimand you for once in a row you doing something wrong. All right, but I was like, but when it happens, it's not gonna be good, and you will have earned your punishment. Like, so that's the first thing, right? Second thing is, you come to practice, I need you ready to think. Right? I was like, we are not going to be a normal group. Like, a lot of your punishment or whatever is going to come from you not thinking in the water. I was like, we are athletes. We're here to win. At the top level or at the surface level, right? We are in a sport. We're here to win. We're here to be the best. Beneath that is your thinking, right? We need to be the best thinkers in the water. Beneath that is we need to have the best morals and I almost just remember the word right there. Morals and standards that allow us to make being a thinking athlete common so we can win. And at the bottom is everything we do is going to make us a better person. So we need to make sure that this is reflected in our standards, which is reflected in the way we train, right? Thinking, which is then reflected in the way we win. So when you see us out there, you know, kicking your kid's ass, you know, most coaches will be like, oh, they're getting a lot of yards because that's what coaches do, right? Sad times. And not a lot of yards, but they're not getting better through other means, right? They're getting better by swimming longer. Wow, this is a whole butchered statement. They're getting better by swimming, not necessarily technique. But when we get better, it's because we're not swimming. It's because we're thinkers. We're becoming better swimmers, right? So our, let's just say 1 out of 10 endurance is a 9 out of 10 performance because or 7 out of 10, I guess that's more reasonable, because we're just that efficient. Our little oxygen goes much further than their bunch of oxygen does, or than the amount of oxygen that they would have to tap into through training to equal us, right? So we're setting ourselves up for success because we can always add more yards, right? They ain't gonna fix their technique. And that to me, like, I have 10-year-olds doing stuff that David Marsh taught me, and the stuff David Marsh has taught to Olympians and Olympic medalists. If you don't know, since I think 2000 through 2016, his Auburn sprint philosophy. So coaches who were assistants who went on to become head coaches, and he himself have medaled at every Olympics 2000 to 2016. And I want to say they won 2 of those Olympics, got second in one of them. 2 of them. Got second in 2 of them that they didn't win. So I got a 10-year-old doing that. Now, because it's technique-wise, you can't necessarily say it's an elite talent. Now, if they take the technique and they're going like top, like number one by a long shot times, you'd be like, okay, it's an elite talent. But I would say that this swimmer is advanced for their age, right, through technique, right? So, but anyway, yeah, you got to set those standards, set those boundaries, because those are things of action, and you want the kids to understand, like, or to feel that it's this way or the highway, right? Expectations doesn't really set that up, as we learned from the definitions. Like, those are the subconscious communications, those definitions, right? The feeling is put into words, and we want to make sure that we're communicating the right feelings. Okay, I'm almost out of time here. We'll skip that one. We're going to combine these last 2, which are kind of the same thing anyway. So the last one is development. Let's see. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is straight from my Rakely, if I was running a club team. Oh man, we got the spiral of death. If I was running a club team, like what it would look like, right? So you have your active start, skill development. The kids learn skills the fastest from 9 and under. It's harder for them to learn skills just because they got to unlearn habits. So you want to make sure that you're teaching them the right things up front. And that's kind of how the Rakely content is ordered, where the thing you teach them as a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, they're going to learn a more advanced version of the same thing with more details as they get older and they have more refined motor skills. But this is the main thing I want y'all to see right here. So, introduction to the water. 1 to 2 times per week, 30 minutes to an hour, right? So this is kind of what we were doing at my first coaching stop. So if you're watching this video, he who, or what do they say? He who should not be named. You're going to recognize I was running an offense. That was the reason we were producing so well. I was producing so well. So yeah, what was that? So 1 to 2 times per week, 30 minutes or 1 hour. Look how almost 5% yardage. So maybe every once in a while we come in and we actually dive in and swim. 30 minutes, you got 6-year-olds, like it's going to take them a nice chunk of time to get across the pool, right? And then maybe we play a game. But all your games are skill-based. So you look at this, it's 95% of their participation is skills. Okay? And then we go into like motor skills and kind of mental habits, right? Brain function, so they're learning about where their body is in space. Social skills, so we try to have a lot of talking. We let those 6-year-olds talk. And the reason why is because, like, I remember as a kid, I think a lot about my experience. Like, and this is before obviously cell phones, but you went through your whole day and then you came to practice and you talked about the crazy stuff you saw in school. So it's like I want these kids to like have that experience, right, where they're building these friendships through conversations while going through a hardship, right, which is practice, and that's how you build bonds. Bonds are built through shared hardship. Imagination, right? So a lot of times, well, especially with my Rakeley stuff, some of the stuff that I have is stuff that the kids were like, yo, this drill is stupid. Let's try it this way. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, you're right. Let's do it your way. And then I kept it. So build a fun relationship. Like I said, subconscious mind. A fun relationship between water, practice, confidence, and positive self-esteem. So I did this wrong. The and should be here. Positive between water and practice, and where should and be? Between the mental model and feeling of being at practice, and how that builds. Yeah, so the and should be there. So you're trying to create a feeling, a relationship of that would be the feeling of fun between going to practice and being in the water, and how that builds confidence and positive self-esteem. We want that interaction to be grouped into the feeling of fun. Games that include participation and fun, not necessarily winning, right? So everything is about like I want to go to practice, right? Building those type of kids, high skilled kids who want to go to practice. Okay, and then over here, like I know some of y'all want to read this stuff over here. We ain't really get into that. So pause it if you want to. But this will be the second thing we talk to you before we go into closing. Fundamentals. Right now, this part stuff down here, I don't know where I got this from, because I looked through my files. And I usually keep the original documents I get this stuff from, and I think this must have been a basketball thing. It had to have been, because I couldn't find it anywhere in swimming, even through a Google search. Right, so this is where my bread and butter was, or with Rakeley. Let's see, how do I say this? The beginning of me figuring out that I could help everybody with my technique stuff. All right, so once again, we came in, set the standard. We're not going to do a whole lot of swimming, which the kids are, but we are going to be like on the mental side, right? We're going to have the most perfect dives, backstroke starts, breathing, flip turn, streamlines, rolling from your flip turn to your stomach, breakouts, stroke technique. Like the overall skeleton of our swimming is going to be the best you're going to see, right? So once again, we're not focused on swimming, we're focused on skills. And in all honesty, like doing drills is going to get you up and down the pool, right? So that's where our swimming mostly came from. So at this team, we had about 16 to 20, 18 I think was the most we ever had. About 18 kids per lane, 6-lane pool, 5 feet deep on one end, 3 feet deep on the other end. And then it was split into two training groups. So 3 lanes and then 3 lanes, right? So the first 3 lanes, we're doing a lot more skill work, right? So we're going from fun primarily and skill work to, sorry about that, guys. To a lot more skill work. And then the second most thing, like once we get our skills, our games are organized around, can we execute the skills going fast? How much power can we get from our skills? How much speed can we get from our skills? Right? So that's also where our other part of swimming came from. So it was very rare for us to come in and just swim, basically is what I'm saying. And then you have the other 3 lanes. They're doing a little less skill work. They're still learning, but they're doing more swim because these are our 8 and 9-year-olds. And ideally, by the age of 10, we want them to have all their skill, like their fundamental skeleton of how to be a swimmer, how to look elite, right? Maybe they're not producing elite propulsion from their pull, but the structure of their swimming is elite. Their fundamentals are elite. Their floor of their ability level is elite. So we're going to start introducing a little bit more yardage. So now, up here, we would have kids, and like I said, this is just skeleton work. So moving through the water efficiently. Right? Actually, I'll show you all this because I think it is kind of a little important. Right? So freestyle, you see, nothing we did was built on propulsion. It was just being efficient. Backstroke, a little bit more power. Breaststroke, limiting drag. So nothing power, just get out of your own way. Same thing with butterfly. So that's what I mean, the skeleton of the stroke. Like the thing that is the biggest obstacle to you swimming fast once you start training. So, and through this, we would have kids going, like I said, you see this down here, 2 to 3 sessions per week. So this was Monday, Wednesday, Friday group. Fundamentals was active start was a Tuesday, Thursday group. And then sometimes you'd also have a Tuesday, Thursday group here. Right? And we would have kids going AAA times. Not AAA times, Jesus. I'm not that good. Because, that takes training, but A times for sure. BB times for sure, and then we'd have a few A's. So on our team, you would get different colored caps based on the time standard you have. And I don't know this to be entirely true, but the purple cap is an A cut. And in the 3 days a week groups, we started seeing purple caps start getting peppered in, which is super cool. Right? And then our 5 day a week practices, the first level of 5 day a week practices was like your 10-year-olds, your 11, 12-year-olds, and your 13, 14-year-olds. Obviously, they're in different lanes, but like I said, our 13, 14-year-olds were swimming like 7 to 8 kids a lane. Our 10-year-olds were 11 pretty much every day, 2 lanes. And then we had the 9/10-year-olds who had mastered all their fundamental skills. They were at, they probably had the most space just because there was not as many of them. But they were about 8 to 9 also. Yeah, because that 8 to 9, they kind of spilt over. Like once they got fast enough, they would then move in with the 10-year-olds. Well, the 11 to 10-year-olds, and then the 12, 13, 14-year-olds would kind of practice together. So anyway, I say that to say, like, we had kids swimming very fast, like no training at all. It was just purely how to move through the water. And that's kind of the major point I want to get across about this 8 and under development is you don't need any training. You don't need a lot of attendance. What you need, excuse me guys, my allergies going nuts. On top of the fact that I'm always scratching my nose the moment I get in front of a camera, so forgive me. It was all technique driven. Because you got to think about how you can drop time, right? If you are in and out of your turn quickly, you can drop a lot of time as a 8 and under, right? You learn, like, once you get stable, then also drop time. Once you get stable and you can come out of that into a smooth swim transition, drop time, right? So you add up enough of those things, you're going BB times, right? Just from showing up and not being in your own way. Like, I don't think I realize how easy it is, right? But it takes a high level of discipline. I think discipline may have been the word. No, it wasn't discipline. We'll look it up before we close. I am not going to lose it this time. We're going to write it down. But like, it was technique driven. Technique driven. I'll even show you real quick. I don't know if I can do this. I think of a way I can pull this up without showing my whole desktop. Video. Okay, video. No, stroke development. Archives, version 1. Tier 1. Yep, okay, here we go. Let me blow this up. I think that's how we're going to do it. How would I hide this, though? Okay, perfect. There we go. All right, so this is level 1. So I was running this. I probably started coach, like what Rakely is now, the beginning version of it, I started using in 2016. In 2019, I started putting it into like actual videos, right? So this is 2019, the original version 1.0 of Rakely. So let's see if it'll pop up correctly. Yeah, there we go. Oh, dang it. Of course, let me see. There we go. Right, so this is our original stuff. This is what our 8-year-olds, our 8-unders were doing, right? And then once they got good at it, then they moved up to the next group where they learned a little bit more competitive things, right? Which would be your 10 and unders. But you can see it, making sure that you're breathing to the side correctly, making sure your high elbow catch, your distance, in this case, distance per stroke timing, pull replace was correct, making sure your streamline was correct, making sure your kicking was correct, and your base level flip turn, right? So getting in and out of the wall quickly into a good swim transition. You do those things correctly, you're going BB times, right? You add in a little yards on that, you're going A and AA times, right? You take training, or if you're a team who does a lot of serious training, if you took this and combined it, quad A times for sure, right? By the age of 10. And I would say our 10-year-olds, they were going quad A times, but they were probably hitting like 1,500 yards of practice. Right, so that's what I'm saying. Like it was all maximizing what they did through technique. So I hope that helps you guys out with your younger swimmers. Once again, shout out to Coach Mike, great coach over there in City of Midland. You know, the great desert. And once again, it's Momentum Coaching Podcast. I'll try and see if I can find the YouTube and put it below, but his the actual podcast is on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. That's what I believe it said. So, go give him a follow, check out what he's talking about, and, hit that subscribe button, hit the like so we can get pushed in the algorithm. This is what I'm talking about, right? Like this is some great information for a coach who's just starting out or who's coaching those young swimmers and is trying to figure out like the structure they need so what they know can actually convert into results. So you giving us a like and subscribing goes a long way in pushing us in the algorithm so we can get information like this out to the coaches and the parents and the swimmers who really need it. So once again, like, drop a comment, tell us what you thought was the best piece of advice in here, what you thought wasn't. How you feel about Coach Mike? How you feel about Rakely, right? Are we wrong in what we're saying? How do you feel about our game-dominated approach and our skill-dominated approach? And lastly, hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever we upload. Once again, thanks for hanging out and peace.